Hello, brains. First of all, thank you if you watched our Lies About Self-Care video. You can check that out here if you haven't seen it, but a lot of you watched it, which I was really excited about. I put a lot of thought into that video and it was cool to see it do well. So thank you. Also, I saw a lot of comments asking for more specific ideas of self-care strategies, hacks, tools, or whatever as kind of like an inspo list. Like, I want to take better care of myself. I want ideas of what to do, how to do it. So that's what this video is. I came up with a ton of self-care hacks that were really helpful for us as new parents that also I think work really well for people with ADHD in general. I may have overdone it. Every time I tried to narrow down the list of what I wanted to include, I came up with more. So I'm just going to roll with it. There's going to be a lot of self-care strategies, a lot of hacks here, some of which you may have heard before, but maybe not like this, or ones that we hear all the time, but maybe don't exactly know how to do it in a way that works for us. So yeah, here are the list of all of the things. Pause and take 5. This one was really, really helpful for me. I did not know about this technique before I became a parent. Historically, as somebody with ADHD, if I'm feeling really frustrated with something, I will either try and power through it or I will be like, okay, I can't, and I will leave and not come back. But they teach you that the best thing you can do if you're hitting, like, I'm so frustrated, I don't know what to do, level as a new parent, put the baby down in a safe place and walk out of the room for 5 minutes. They might cry, but they'll be okay. And then you come back after 5 minutes, and then you're in a better place to be able to engage in an effective way. The first time I heard this advice was somebody in the comments, so thank you for that. If you're at the point where you're not being effective anymore, or you might actually break a thing, like don't shake the baby, don't shake the laptop either, don't throw the laptop through a window. If I can put something as precious and important as a baby down and walk away and have that baby cry for 5 minutes, I can do the same thing with a script. And then my laptop does not get hurled out a window, and I'm going to be able to be more effective when I come back. Take care of your sensory needs. If you don't know what your sensory needs are, there are tools to figure that out. What I did for myself before I knew about these tools was just pay attention to what is sensory good and what is sensory bad. What makes my brain go yay and what makes my brain go nah. And just paying attention to that can kind of like help guide you. For me, I know that I really love soft blankets. Like, it's one of the most sensory good things for me is like having a soft blanket, to the point that like I almost don't care what else I'm going through. If I have a soft blanket, like I'm okay. Sensory swings. I talk about that in my Lies About Self-Care That I Believed video. Noise canceling headphones, essential oils. You can use a diffuser or you can just carry the little bottle of essential oil around with you and just smell it. Everybody's sensory needs are different. My sensory needs tend to be about needing more sensory input that's sensory good. I add sensory stuff. I add the soft blanket. I swing in the swing. My partner tends to be the opposite. He wants to tone down the sensory stuff. He does really well with earplugs, noise canceling headphones, being alone. So like he's not getting the sensory overwhelm of like people moving and talking and doing things. I tend to not like bright lights. Like, I'm sitting here because, you know, I'm on camera. Hi, this is what I do for you. This is how much you mean to me. I tend to like dimmer lights and he tends to like them brighter. So that's something that's a little odd for us. Everybody's got different sensory needs, but when you're in periods of stress, when you're not sleeping, all of that, like getting those sensory needs met is especially critical. There's so many people in this community that I'm sure have really cool hacks for getting sensory needs met. Please drop those in the comments below. I would love to read those. Create an environment that supports your needs. It's unrealistic for us as new parents, or even people just with ADHD, to have our entire environment be the way that we would like it to be. I have tried my whole life to do that. I have failed my whole life to do that. But having areas where the environment is set up in exactly the way that you want it to be, or in a way that is supportive of your needs, is really nice, because otherwise it's like your entire environment is working against you, right? Like, you're trying to learn a new skill, or you're trying to relax and fall asleep in the evening, or you're trying to find a thing. We can't sleep because the environment's not set up for that, or we can't find the thing because there's like clutter everywhere. So whether it's a room or a corner or a spot on the wall, having little micro environments that are perfectly tailored to your needs, that are super supportive of whatever you need to do in that space, I think is one of the best hacks that I learned about self-care. If I'm not in a good place, like, I have a place I can go to get to a better place without my environment working against me. After having a baby, that was my daughter's nursery. It had everything that I needed. It was perfectly organized. All the clothes were folded in Marie Kondo style. The rest of the house, like, clutter, chaos, whatever, in my daughter's nursery. Gentle lighting that I could adjust, really adorable things on the wall, like soft things. It ended up being exactly the environment that I needed to bond with my daughter and heal. Cannot recommend that enough as a self-care hack. If there's a type of self-care you want to engage in, have a space where that type of self-care is really easy to do. Set boundaries that are situation specific. Boundaries are really tough for people with ADHD. And I think part of why they're tough is because we don't necessarily know where our boundaries should be because they vary so much from day to day. Like our needs for those boundaries vary from day to day. Some days I might be totally fine with this, and some days I just can't. Part of the problem is like your boundaries vary, but part of the problem is like not being able to remember, not being able to stick to boundaries. So instead of like global boundaries, like this is true all the time, set situation specific boundaries. For a while, when I was really not okay because postpartum depression, I ended up in a partial hospitalization program. Like it got bad. And so I kind of went scorched earth for a little bit, which is very common. I'm usually happy to take care of other people, and I couldn't. So I went really hardcore. I cannot take care of anybody but myself and my daughter. That was pretty harsh. It was also not really possible for me to follow because there were times where I was feeling okay and up for taking care of other people. So it was very difficult for me to follow my own boundary. But it was also like hard for the people around me for me to like have that great of a shift because I am a natural caretaker. My partner hearing, I cannot take care of you ever, like that was really hard. So eventually I realized, okay, what I actually need here is a situation specific boundary for the times when I am not okay and I can't take care of somebody else, or even if I'm okay, but I'm just not in a place where I can really give right now. I need to fill my cup a little bit more. I talked about how I made this the environment that I needed to heal, to take care of myself and take care of my daughter. Well, that became this is where I go to take care of myself and take care of my daughter in this nursery. I do not take care of anybody else. If you are consistent with your boundaries and you keep communicating them, the people who care about respecting your boundaries will eventually understand and respect them. Give yourself a win. My partner pointed out that self-care is not always about recharging yourself. Sometimes you don't need rest. You don't need relaxation. It's not even alone time. I talked in the last video about how I give my partner a lot of alone time, but we had a conversation about how sometimes that's not what he needs. Giving him alone time actually makes him feel worse if while he's taking his alone time, I'm running around taking care of a bunch of stuff in the house. So sometimes what he needs is this strategy. If what you need is a boost of confidence to feel good about yourself, giving yourself a win can be a very effective form of self-care. For him as a new dad, this was especially critical because he wasn't able to do the things that I could do. He wasn't the one that was able to give birth. He wasn't able to nurse the baby. So it was really important to him to do the things that he could do and find his wins. Often stuff that I wasn't as good at. So like assembling the baby furniture or cooking. He would cook for us and he's a really good cook. Or he would make the bed. I'm not great about making the bed. And I feel like this is really important for people with ADHD in general too, because a lot of the time you are comparing yourself to others and not feeling great about yourself. You're seeing other people be able to easily do things that you really struggle with. So finding ways to give yourself that win is a really great idea. One idea that I got from our science officer, researcher, Dr. Patrick LeCount, that I have repeated a lot, but it's because it's so, so good, is pick 3 things that if you do just those 3 things today, you will consider today a success. So yeah, just give yourself a win. That is absolutely a form of self-care and not one I think that we often hear. Speaking of giving yourself a win, one way that my partner and I both do that is with games. One of the ways that we play games is in the Paired app. There's questions, quizzes, games that you answer every day to help your relationship. This game was really fun. How messy are you? It turns out he doesn't like it when I make the bed, which makes me feel way better about all the times that I don't make the bed.
How often? A made bed is a stiff bed and is not a comfortable bed.
Do you not like it when I make the bed? I do that sometimes for you, like as a treat. I'm like, it's nice.
Did you notice how quickly I mess it up?
So you don't like it when I make the bed for you?
I like the principle of it. I like the kindness of it. I like the fact that you're considerate of me.
But I don't tuck it. I don't tuck the sheets in.
So restricting.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh. I love crawling into
I know
a
you do.
freshly made bed.
I know you do.
So just my half will be made and your...
And when you say my half of the bed, do you mean my actual half?
Okay.
Or do you mean the 1/8 that counts as my half?
Mm-hmm. Taking care of your relationship is absolutely a form of self-care because if your relationship stays in a good place, it's a lot easier for you to be in a good place. The Paired app is a great way to do that. It's a great way to help you connect. It's short, it's fun, it's in a way that's very ADHD and autism friendly. It gives us something to do to connect with each other when we are not in the same room. And then when we are in the same room, we can connect over our answers and laugh and talk about it. If you'd like to try the Paired app, click my link in the description below to get a 7-day free trial and 25% off Paired Premium so you can maintain and deepen your connection with your partner. Velcro the Positive. This is in response to something called negativity bias, which, if you don't know what that is, I'll link to some videos in the description below. Basically, our brains are wired to hold on to, rehearse, remember, ruminate on things that are negative more than things that are positive. And in some situations, that's adaptive, it protects us. But other times, it's not adaptive, it just contributes to anxiety or depression. Yay. Velcroing the positive is all about finding ways to rehearse, remember, ruminate on the positive, not just the negative. So, one way to do this is to journal. I did not have time to do that as a new mom. I often don't have time to do that just as a person with ADHD trying to do way too many things. So, I found this 5-year one-line journal. You just write one line per day and you get that little extra motivation of the next year. If you haven't lost it, you get to see what you wrote the year before, which is really neat and motivating. Writing one line per day of just something positive that happened for me, for my partner, for my baby. Just having a very simple one-line journal did help me a lot. On the flip side, it can also really help to counter confirmation bias toward the negative. If we're like, oh man, like every time I go to a party, I make a fool out of myself. We don't necessarily remember the times we went to a party and did not make a fool out of ourselves. And then if we go to a party and we make a fool out of ourselves, we're like, see, like every time I go to a party, I make a fool out of myself, and it confirms this negative belief. So, one of the things you can do is every time you think of a negative thought like that, I'm never able to get somewhere on time. The next time you're able to get somewhere on time, write it down. Hey, on this day, at this time, like I did plan well, I did get somewhere on time. I sometimes get places on time, like I can be on time. Ground yourself. I was often either in the past or in the future, like worrying about the future, ruminating on the past. So I really relied on grounding exercises to bring me back to the present. There's one that incorporates all your senses, like name 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can touch, 2 things you can smell, 1 thing you can taste, which can be really helpful because the more of your senses you involve in a grounding exercise, often the better, because you're bringing all of your senses into the present. But one thing that helped me a lot was phrases, actually. Words are really powerful for me. I write for a living. My body is often very present, but my mind is everywhere else. So for me, phrases that bring my mind back to the present are really helpful. One I came up with: if the whole world is on fire, get your face out of the candle. It's silly, it makes me laugh, and it reminds me to have some perspective when I'm like overly focused on one thing that I'm convinced is going to ruin my life. Is this going to matter in 3 months? How important is this going to be to my future self? And that kind of brings me back to where I'm at instead of like spinning anxiously into the future or ruminating on the past. I did not get the support that I needed growing up as somebody with ADHD in the 90s. And that's not just for me. A lot of people with ADHD did not get the support they needed with the struggles that they have. And so for me, a lot of the anxiety that I have is around like not getting the support that I need, even still. So I had a therapist teach me a really cool grounding exercise that is about noticing that you are being supported all of the time physically. Like notice your chair beneath you, notice your feet on the floor. You are all of the time being supported. Paying attention to the ways in which I am physically being supported helps me a lot to ground myself. And my partner pointed out that cognitive exercises are not always accessible when we're really distressed, when we're melting down, when we're panicking or whatever. But having these cards around the house of like what's going on today can be a way to do it. Having a list that you give your partner or a close friend, like, hey, if I'm spinning out, these are things that you can say to snap me out of it. But for my partner, he says that it's actually not helpful because he's so in his head that things that make him think are not as effective as something sensory. So for him, one of the best tools was to take a shower. In a shower, you can hear the shower, feel the shower. If you have nice smelling soaps, that engages your olfactory senses. So it's very helpful. We might not think of that as a grounding exercise, but it actually is. Breathe. Breathing exercises are something we hear about all of the time. If you've never heard that breathing exercises can reduce anxiety, breathing exercises can reduce anxiety. It's a way of calming our mind by calming our body. We slow down our breath, and that can slow down our mind. If our breathing slows down, it can take us out of that fight, flight, freeze reaction and bring us down. Just bring it down. Just bring it down. Star breathing is where you just breathe in as you trace, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in. There was actually a really cute book that Dr. Sharon Saline, who specializes in ADHD and anxiety, got for my daughter called Alpha Breaths. On every page, there's a letter, and for every letter, there is a breathing exercise. So I flipped through and I was like, a lot of these are really good for me too. There's a lot of different breathing exercises that I'd never seen before. But I think maybe my favorite one that I've come across as a new mom was from a book called Good Inside that had a specific breathing strategy that is great for using with kids too, where you imagine holding a cup of hot cocoa and you breathe in and then you breathe out slowly enough that it doesn't disturb the marshmallows. The idea is if you breathe out for longer than you breathe in, that can slow you down. And by the way, I learned that the reverse is true too. If you are taking a longer in breath than an out breath, like that can energize you. So you can use these breathing techniques in different ways. It is a really basic, but also a really effective form of self care. I'm going to practice a little self care and go rest and hug my daughter. I hope that you found some strategies here that might be helpful for you, or at least it got you thinking of what you might do. I will definitely do a part 2 to this because I've already done the prep work for it. If there's one that you would like me to include, put it in the comments below. Thank you to our brain advocates and all our Patreon brains for allowing us to do the work that we do while taking care of ourselves. Like, subscribe, click all the things, and I will see you next video. Bye, brains. Thank you so much to the Paired app for sponsoring this video. Click my link below to get a 7-day free trial and 25% off Paired Premium to deepen your connection with your partner.